Society has successfully brainwashed you into believing that being endlessly compliant, agreeable, and nice is synonymous with being a good man. You swallow your pride, you keep the peace, and you convince yourself this makes you noble. That is a dangerous, devastating lie. The psychological truth is that the most fiercely accommodating people are often harboring the most terrifying psychological time bombs. One-sided kindness is not a virtue. It is a symptom of a deeply fractured mind. Feel the heavy, suffocating weight of this niceness in your own chest right now. If you do not stop swallowing your anger and conforming to the endless expectations of others tonight, I know exactly what your tomorrow looks like. You will wake up to another day of being completely overlooked, used by those around you, and silently burning with a toxic, unexpressed resentment. You are locked in a daily cycle of brutal self-betrayal, and your polite smile is the very lock on the cage. To break this cycle, we must turn to the profound analytical framework of Carl Jung. We are going to dismantle the artificial goodness that is slowly destroying your life. Jung discovered that the only way to achieve genuine psychological wholeness and to permanently stop being prey is to actively integrate your darkest, most socially unacceptable impulses. We must dive into the unconscious and forge an alliance with the exact monster you have spent your entire life trying to hide. The damp, suffocating fog of Victorian London rolls through the cobblestone streets. A highly respected doctor, a man celebrated for his flawless morality and endless charity, locks himself inside his dimly lit laboratory. He raises a chemical concoction to his lips, swallows it, and violently transforms into a ruthless sociopath. The glass shatters on the floor. This is the terrifying moment the good man realizes his repressed darkness has finally broken free and taken total control. The tragic myth of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is not merely a piece of classic Gothic fiction. It is the most accurate clinical representation ever written of what Carl Jung termed an inflation of the persona. You are looking at a psychological autopsy. Just like the doctor, you have over-identified with a completely sanitized, socially approved mask. You have poured all your energy into projecting an image of pure, unbreakable compliance, while aggressively burying your natural instincts. Modern society relentlessly demands this flawless persona from you. It demands endless patience, absolute agreeableness, and a permanent smile. But the human psyche operates on a strict law of balance, and it absolutely cannot tolerate this level of extreme one-sidedness. The more intensely you identify with the archetype of the good person, the more powerful, hungry, and autonomous your repressed shadow becomes. By starving your darkness, you are inadvertently giving it a life of its own. Carl Jung delivered a brutal warning to those who attempt to live purely in the light. He understood that morality forced entirely through repression is completely artificial. When you bite your tongue instead of defending your borders, you are not actually choosing to be nice. You are simply too afraid of the consequences of conflict to be anything else. Your compliance is a trauma response disguised as a moral victory. You are not a saint. You are a man terrified of his own teeth. This artificial goodness creates a widening fault line inside your mind. The pressure builds every single time you say yes when your entire body is screaming no. The quiet resentment simmering in your chest is the first symptom of a devastating psychological fracture. You must look in the mirror and confront a deeply unsettling question about your own identity. What if your desperate, lifelong attempt to be perfectly good is exactly what is creating your internal, uncontrollable monster? The fog of Victorian London fades, but the psychological split remains. Fast forward to the year 2026. The setting is a sterile, modern, open-plan office. It is 8 o'clock at night. The hum of the air conditioner is the only sound left. Ethan is staring blankly at the harsh glow of his monitor. Everyone else went home hours ago. His phone vibrates. It is another unreasonable, poorly planned demand from his manager. Ethan forces a smile to an empty room, types out a polite confirmation, and hits send. The silence in the office is deafening. Ethan genuinely believes that his extreme compliance is a virtue. He tells himself he is being a reliable team player, a truly good man who sacrifices for the collective. But we must tear away this noble mask. This endless accommodation is not virtue. It is an unconscious control strategy. Ethan is actively using his niceness as a currency to buy a fleeting illusion of safety. He is attempting to manage the unpredictable nature of his boss to avoid the terrifying necessity of conflict. This brings us to a devastating paradox that every chronic people-pleaser must face. Why does your endless accommodation guarantee your eventual exploitation? You have been taught that if you just give enough, people will eventually respect your boundaries. But the human psyche does not operate on fairness. It operates on the ruthless mechanics of power and compensation. Carl Jung described a fundamental psychological law known as enantiodromia, the inevitable emergence of the unconscious opposite. When you push a psychological tendency to its extreme, it will violently swing back in the other direction. Ethan's forced external smile and continuous submission guarantee the rapid accumulation of a toxic, unacknowledged internal resentment. He is literally poisoning his own mind to maintain the comfort of his abuser. This internal poison is the modern manifestation of Mr. Hyde. It is the exhaustion that makes it impossible to get out of bed. It is the sudden, inexplicable flashes of hatred toward people you claim to love. You cannot act as an emotional landfill for your workplace and expect to remain psychologically intact. The pressure cooker is sealing, and the fire underneath is only getting hotter. There is a dark truth about how predators operate, whether in a corporate office or in your personal life. They do not exploit you because you possess some rare magnetic strength. That is a comforting lie victims tell themselves. Predators exploit you because they can smell the fractured ego of the nice person. They instinctively recognize a psyche that desperately needs external validation just to justify its own existence. When Ethan says yes to that late-night email, he is not proving his worth. He is broadcasting his absolute vulnerability. He is signaling to the predator that his boundaries are entirely negotiable, that his fear of being disliked is far greater than his self-respect. In the desperate attempt to avoid becoming the villain, the good man volunteers to become the permanent victim. This psychological erosion is not confined to the corporate battlefield. It happens behind closed doors, masked as familial duty. Imagine a cramped city apartment. Chloe is frantically cleaning, her heart racing as she prepares for a Thanksgiving dinner. The moment her mother steps through the door, the passive-aggressive criticism begins. Chloe shrinks. She swallows her anger, forces a tight smile, and immediately apologizes for the state of the kitchen. The air is thick with unspoken tension. We look at Chloe and see a dutiful daughter trying to maintain harmony. But Carl Jung would look at this scene and ask a far more penetrating question. Are you truly keeping the peace, or are you simply ceasing to exist? Chloe believes she is making a noble sacrifice for her family. But this absolute refusal to defend her boundaries is not an act of love, and it is certainly not a sign of respect. It is a manifestation of paralyzing, deep-seated fear. To survive her mother's constant criticism, Chloe has entirely disowned her natural, healthy aggression. She has locked her inner Hyde, her innate capacity to bite back, to refuse, to offend, deep in the basement of her unconscious. But when you repress this aggressive instinct, you do not magically become a saint. You become a psychological vacuum. You create an empty space that practically invites other people to project their own neuroses and insecurities directly onto you. By silencing herself, Chloe is actively participating in her own diminishment. This brings us to the brutal truth of the Jungian process of individuation, the journey toward becoming a complete, psychologically whole human being. You absolutely cannot build an authentic self while simultaneously acting as an emotional landfill for someone else's dysfunction. Every time Chloe apologizes for something she didn't do, she is dismantling her own identity. Her extreme agreeableness is not a virtue. It is a form of profound psychological self-harm. She is destroying the architecture of her own mind just to avoid an uncomfortable conversation. If you recognize this pattern in your own life, if you know the exhausting weight of constantly swallowing your anger to keep someone else comfortable, hit the like button right now. It shows us that we are uncovering the truth. Share in the comments how many times you have apologized just to avoid a fight. We are taught that suppressing our dark side makes us civilized. But as Ethan and Chloe demonstrate, suppressing the shadow does not eliminate the darkness. It only transfers the power to the abuser. You become a hollow shell, desperately seeking approval from the very people who are erasing you. To stop this, we must understand exactly what happens when the suppressed monster finally decides it has had enough. To ensure you do not miss the psychological mechanics of the breaking point, subscribe to the channel now. We leave the slow, quiet poisoning of Ethan and Chloe and return to the suffocating Victorian laboratory. Dr. Jekyll stands paralyzed before his mirror. He hasn't touched the potion, yet his hands are beginning to change. The transformation is happening entirely on its own. The monster is no longer a separate entity waiting for permission. It is violently bleeding into his waking life. This is the exact moment of total loss of control. This terrifying loss of control is not fiction. It is the inevitable destination for every chronic people-pleaser. You must ask yourself a chilling question. What exactly happens when the monster you refused to acknowledge decides it is completely tired of hiding? Jung delivered a profound warning about this very moment. Whatever is rejected from the self does not quietly fade away. It appears in the outside world as an event. The resentment you have been carefully burying does not simply disappear. It ferments in the dark. It gathers density and power. If you do not consciously integrate this frustration, it will eventually bypass your conscious mind and manifest destructively. It will explode as a sudden, uncontrollable outburst of rage over something trivial, or it will turn completely inward, destroying your body through severe psychosomatic illness. The ultimate tragedy of Dr. Jekyll is not that he possessed a dark side. His fatal error was that he tried to eliminate his darkness entirely. He failed to realize a fundamental truth of the psyche. The shadow does not just contain malice and cruelty. The shadow also contains your raw vitality, your deepest instincts, and the absolute necessary capacity for self-preservation. By rejecting Mr. Hyde, Jekyll rejected his own ability to survive. If you do not consciously claim your capacity for ruthlessness, it will inevitably claim you. It will leak out sideways as toxic passive aggression, making you just as manipulative as the people you despise. Or worse, it will result in a sudden, catastrophic collapse of the carefully curated, perfectly nice life you've sacrificed so much to build. We step away from the catastrophic warning of the Victorian myth and pull this dark energy into the harsh light of reality. We return to Ethan. He is standing in the middle of his manager's office. The familiar, unreasonable demands are being made. But this time, Ethan does not force a smile. He looks his boss dead in the eye and calmly states, "No, I will not take on this project without a raise." He stops talking. He lets the silence hang. Across the city, Chloe is standing in her kitchen. Her mother launches into another passive-aggressive critique. Chloe does not shrink. She does not apologize. She locks eyes with her mother and says, "If you continue to criticize my home, you will have to leave." A terrifying silence follows. The anticipated apocalypse does not happen. The sky does not fall. This brings us to the ultimate psychological crucible. Are you prepared to become the villain in their story to reclaim the sovereignty of your own? This is the mechanics of shadow integration in real time. You must consciously reach down and access the repressed, culturally unacceptable parts of your psyche, your selfishness, your anger, and your capacity for cold indifference. You do not let these forces control you. You consciously weaponize them as an immune response. By saying no and holding that terrifying silence, Ethan and Chloe have done something profound. They have intentionally provoked a narcissistic injury in their exploiters. When you establish a genuine boundary, the immediate reaction of the predator will be violent projection. They will attempt to regain control by calling you cruel, ungrateful, and selfish. They will try to make you believe you are the monster. This is the moment most people break. When you finally stand up for yourself, you will experience an agonizing wave of guilt. But you must endure this discomfort. This guilt is a trick of your lifelong social conditioning. It is not a moral failing. The guilt you feel when you stop being nice is actually the necessary growing pain of your emerging authentic self. You are finally dismantling the prison. The storm finally breaks, and the prison crumbles. Ethan and Chloe have played their parts, but their battle is just a mirror for the one you are fighting right now. Imagine waking up to a quiet, clear morning. You are sitting alone at your table, holding a warm cup of coffee. The phone is entirely silent. There are no frantic demands, no guilt trips to manage. The crushing, suffocating weight of playing the perfect person is finally gone. You breathe, and you realize you are no longer prey. You must internalize this profound realization. Your capacity for darkness is not a tragic flaw. It is the impenetrable wall that protects your light. A person gains true psychological power only when they accept a harsh reality. Trying to be understood and liked by everyone is a complete fool's errand. Sovereignty requires the absolute courage to be inconvenient. When you stop twisting yourself to fit the mold of a harmless victim, you step into the fierce reality of your own existence. This is the ancient truth that bridges the Gothic laboratories of Victorian London with the sterile corporate offices of today. The human psyche has never changed. Your newly integrated shadow is not an evil force that will turn you into a monster. It is the ruthless, absolutely necessary guardian standing firmly at the gate of your individuation.
It provides the psychological teeth required to defend your borders against a world that will gladly consume you if you let it.
It is time to permanently cease the exhausting, endless performance of the nice person. Forced positivity and chronic compliance are just cowardly masks. True goodness is a conscious, deliberate choice. And that choice only has actual moral value when you possess the capacity to be dangerous. If you are incapable of destruction, your kindness means nothing. You are simply harmless, and the harmless are always eventually devoured by those who recognize their vulnerability. We have traveled from the depths of myth to the reality of your own life, unearthing the weapons you need to survive. Now, it is time to forge them into your identity. If you are finally ready to drop the mask and defend your borders, I want you to make a declaration. Write this exact phrase in the comments right now to physically anchor your new boundary into reality. I claim my shadow. My will is law. Let this be the first irreversible step out of your psychological cage. The terrifying myth of the uncontrollable monster loses all its power the moment you invite it into the light. You no longer need to hide behind a fragile smile or surrender your dignity to keep the peace. You have reclaimed the fierce, ancient vitality of your own soul, standing as an unbreakable fortress against the chaos of the world. Embrace the dark, protect your light, and walk forward with absolute sovereignty. Until next time.